So the last few weeks, we've heard a lot about what Mitchell Johnson has been up to ever since he hung up his boots, and it's been a while since he did that. But this podcast is also about Mitchell Johnson's career. It's a look back to all his wonderful moments on the field and not so wonderful moments as well. And we'll get to the not so wonderful moments much later. Don't worry, Mitch. And today, maybe speaking of wonderful moments, I decided we should go back to a day you described as your favorite as a bowler of all time. I mean, that's the day. It was day 3 of the Ashes test at the Adelaide Oval, my home ground, if I may call it so, where you famously took 7 for 40. You'd already rocked the English in the first test at the Gabba, and I'm sure we'll do a deep dive on that sometime in the future. Uh, but it was really in Adelaide where you kind of completely ran through them. You really, that's when the cat was set amongst the pigeons, and it in dramatic circumstances as well, right, Mitch? I'm sure we'll get into each detail or each aspect of it into detail.
Yeah.
But on one side, there was all this reconstruction of the stadium going on while you were busy deconstructing the English batting order.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't your typical Adelaide Oval, and I'd spent a bit of time there when I'd first started travelling with cricket in 1999 when I went to the Cricket Academy, and I think it might have been 2000 when I started to work at Adelaide Oval. So I've seen the difference, the changes in the ground, and it was very different on that day with the construction going on. And at first, it was a little bit sort of disappointing because you always want to play in a great stadium, and unfortunately, it was partly blocked off because of the construction going on. But look, the fans came, and it was a great atmosphere there. Still, it still felt like an Adelaide Oval Test match, and the pitch and the ground is always elite. So there was nothing. Yeah, nothing against all that. It was just you go out there and whatever conditions you come up in, and you just play your game, and it was a pretty good one.
Oh, well, you can say that again. Look, we can, and we will get to the spell itself, especially those 6 wickets you took on that day. You knocked out Alistair Cook the previous evening. But just the build up to that test match itself, Mitch, after the Gabba, I mean, you
Actually, I'm going to stop you because you mentioned Alistair Cook. I got him out on that afternoon or evening before, and I actually had another LBW shout. It was Carberry, I think. The ball just sort of was heading down leg side. Being a left armer, it always looks worse than what it is, and the keeper was going down leg side a little bit, and it was the very last ball of the inning, of the day, and I went up and appealed, and a few of the boys went up, and it was a bit of a half-hearted one, and we had that 15 seconds to make that decision, and we just thought, do we go for it, or we don't want to really waste it. But I was always thinking, just because of my angle, it may be sliding, but I honestly thought it was hitting leg stump. And I think as we were walking off, it came up on the screen that it was hitting leg stump, or when we went inside, I think I saw it. But yeah, could have had another one, but that could have changed the way of the game as well. So it's one of those decisions that you live with, and you move on. And yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, this also, if you think back, now DRS has become such a part of our lives. It was already a part of your lives as well. I mean, it came into being in 2008, but in a way, everyone was still getting used to it. I mean, technology has gone to the next level in the last, or since that happened, right? 9 years ago now. Oh, feels like a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, you could have either finished with 8 wickets, or it could have gone the other way as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's another chat we can have, isn't it? The technology of the game is how much it's changed. Umpires and the way that the game has gone. So definitely something we can talk about later.
Oh, we will. We definitely will come to that. We have many weeks and years and months to fill up, Mitchell Johnson. Don't worry. Look, going back to what I was saying, at the Gabba, you write in your wonderful book, Resilient, which has been a constant companion in the last few weeks, about how nervous you were at the Gabba. It was your great comeback, and we all know how that played out. Was it a little different in Adelaide? Just like, at the top of your mark, when the spell started, even the first spell with the new ball the previous evening?
I guess the difference was I was still a little bit nervous, but it wasn't quite the same. I think I always felt myself quite nervous at the start of a series, of any series. Obviously, this one was a little more intense for me because I'd come back from injury and it was an Ashes series, so it definitely has more intensity. But I was still quite nervous because the biggest thing for me was about backing up, and that'd been talked about a lot in my career, was not being able to back up in test matches. So there was that nervousness for that reason. It wasn't any other reason. Like I said, the series had started, so you feel like you start to get into it. But you don't want to be complacent as well. So that's the important thing, is that you've always got to be on your game. Once you finish and celebrate that first test match in Brisbane, you get back on and you start focusing on what you need to do, your recovery, what's coming up next week in the test match. And you have to have that real focus and concentration. So, yeah, I wasn't complacent. I was slightly nervous, but confident enough that I was finding some rhythm. But you never know until you get out there. And once that ball sort of came out of my hand early on and with good pace, I felt like I had pretty good rhythm. So I was quite happy with where I was at in that Adelaide test, and I just really wanted to go out there and play a really good game and be consistent was the most important thing. So yeah, I think, like I've always spoken about, is I've had that roller coaster ride throughout my career, and the way I actually remember having this conversation with Glenn McGrath about bringing your performances closer together, and you don't want to be like a 7-for and then a 2-for or a 1-for the following week, and you want it to be consistent. You want it to be closer together in performances. So, I mean, I just tried to go out there and do my job, and my job was to get wickets. I came up with a plan years ago that I wanted to get 4 wickets per match. Was a sort of a guide for me. That it's a tricky one too, because like I said, we're judged on wickets and runs as players. But sometimes you play a different role in the team, and it's not quite that way. You're trying to be aggressive. That was my job, to be aggressive. And if the wickets came, they came. From the outside, yeah, you looked at the perception is very different. So I guess, all I was trying to do is bring my performances closer together from test match to test match. And I was able to do that in that Adelaide test. So that's what made me really proud of that test match. It was actually really special and quite emotional, that test match for me. So, yeah.
You say it was emotional for you. Is it because like of just your previous experiences, like where you'd had a really good test match and maybe you hadn't been able to follow it up in the very next test match? Or was it also and I was just getting to that as well. I mean, the stuff that Alistair Cook had said that maybe you might not be affected, did that play into it? Like, why emotional?
Yeah, all those things come into it. And I think it was more the fact that I was, I'd sort of gone to plan, really. Like when I came back from my toe injury, my plan was to go out there, bowl fast, be aggressive, do it my way. And coming into that second test, and then to have those figures and to win the test match the way we did, it just became really emotional for me that I was able to do it. And I probably had that belief in myself, and it just felt really special. There was a lot of talk behind the scenes as well, in the media as well, with Alistair Cook, which I didn't really take too much notice of that I can remember. It was more from, I think, Gillespie, who I get along well with, really looked up to as a young guy, watching him bowl, and he'd made a couple of little comments about the previous test in Brisbane, me not hitting the stumps. I think it was like 1 out of however many wickets I got in that test. But I was bowling to the conditions as well and bowling to the plan. So I think at first I sort of took that dig to heart a little bit, and then realised that's just the game, and that's what he's a commentator at the time, and watching the game, that's what his thoughts were. So he was all good about it. I was all good in the end, and I was able to prove that I can hit the stumps. I bowled a lot straighter, but I think it always comes back to conditions. That you just have to play the conditions. It doesn't matter if you doesn't matter how you get them. I believe it's how you work as a team, and sometimes you're not going to be at your very best. It's quite often that you're not at your very best at the top. It's you're always trying to get the most out of whatever happens on the day. Sometimes we fight it too much, and you end up bowling really poorly. So there's all those factors that definitely came into it. And, the emotions definitely came out at the end, and kissing the baggy green, and had my best mate there celebrating on one day for his birthday. So that was, another sort of special part of it as well.
So, was it Dylan who your
Dylan.
best friend who you were waving at after you took your fifth wicket? Because I've seen replays where you and this is right after your fifth wicket. You hold your ball up, which has become a tradition now, thanks to Glenn McGrath. And I saw you waving at someone. Was it Dylan?
Yeah. So it was Dylan. He was up in the stands, and you could just see that. I can just sort of picture the face that he had at the time, big smile on it, and he was just clapping. And so he was so pumped. He's always been, he's always loved being around the guys in the team. He's a cricket lover himself. We go back from high school, and him and his brother David got me into cricket. Their mum Cheryl used to drive me home from cricket sometimes, or pick me up to go to cricket sometimes when I was living out of town. And they really got me into cricket, because I wasn't that interested, to be honest. I didn't really want to. I was just happy playing at the nets and that, but they got me playing club cricket, and it was I feel like to be able to share that moment with him, and to see him in the stands, he's always been there and support. Was pretty emotional and pretty special.
Hey, was he always supposed to come for this test match, or was it a surprise? Like, how did it all play out?
I can't remember. I think I must have said to him, "You should come along to Adelaide Oval." He's got family there, so he's originally from there at a very young age, and then moved to Townsville, and then over to Perth. But yeah, I think I must have said, "Oh, you should come for your birthday," and it'd be a pretty special like birthday. So I can't remember exactly how it all went down, but it was just really, really nice to have him there. And it's always good to have family and friends around. I think that's one thing I don't think I have too many regrets, but that's one of them, is not maybe having enough friends and family around at certain times. Definitely through the summer, you have family and friends around, whether you go to your home state or whatever it may be. But maybe that's one thing some guys do really well, as they get their friends to come along, or family to go to certain parts. So I've always had very close, with Jess and my family to come along. But yeah, it's always nice when you can perform as well, and go out there and know that your mate's there who's always been there. He thought he was going to play for Australia as well. That was one of his dreams growing up. I think he bowled to, I think it might have been Steve Waugh in the nets. He was a net bowler when he first moved over to Perth. So I think it was Steve Waugh he told me that he bowled to, and he was a bit of an all-rounder, and always had the pace over him, but he was a better batsman than me, and he actually used to wicket keep to me as well. So we weren't able to bowl together because no one could catch my deliveries, so he was the only one that could sort of keep. So there's a lot of history there, and we've remained great mates to this day.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like whether he mentioned this to you or not, was kind of lived vicariously through you, right? Like, you want to grow up playing for Australia, and your best friend ends up doing that, and especially at the level that you had. It must have been quite something for him.
No, it's amazing. He hasn't got a jealous bone in his body. He honestly just one of the best for me, and same with Dave as well, his brother, who we're in the same year at high school, and Dylan was a year below. But yeah, they definitely both those guys, just loved that I was able to go out there and sort of live maybe with their dream through me in some ways.
No, that's wonderful. No, I mean, there you go. I mean, there are friends you find once you start playing cricket, but your original friends, like
Yeah.
the guys you started out with. I mean, there's something very special about them.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Yeah, and like going back to the preparation for this test, in your book, Mitch, you write about how one part of you wasn't very satisfied with the preparation. You couldn't bowl of a full run. Now I see the Adelaide Oval nets, and I do love to spend a lot of time with the nets. It's like kind of a fetish for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it looks like, I mean, the run-ups are normal, or you can run in. What was wrong back then? Was it to do with the construction?
Well, I couldn't actually in the Brisbane test. I think I couldn't run a full run there as well, and I had a bit of a tantrum there. So I bowled. I think it was at the same time I bowled at Allan Border Field off a long run, but I think Adelaide Oval was very similar. Like I could just get it in, but I was right on the edge of on the fence, I think, from memory. So yeah, I think maybe my run-up's just too long. I need to shorten it. I think that's the problem. Maybe the nets are fine because everyone else can get theirs in, but and I used to think I had one of the shorter run-ups. So yeah, and I did shorten it as well. Sorry, I lie. I lengthened my run-up like probably halfway through my career. I remember at Queensland when I first started, my run-up was about 19 metres. And I don't know if it was from my toe injury, I changed it, or before that. But, I changed it, and it was 25 metres 60. So, you normally don't lengthen it as you progress in your career. You normally go the other way. I think Damien Fleming may have done that. He had a longer run-up when he first started, and he shortened it. So, I went the other way for some silly reason.
Yeah, I'm sure there was something more scientific to do, or
Maybe.
something scientific about it. Yeah,
Maybe
give yourself
maybe I just liked running at that time, because I definitely don't like running now.
There you go. I mean, you prefer getting into boxing rings, but we'll get to that some other time.
Yeah.
So Mitchell Johnson was coming off a long run, but just quickly on that. So, for you or any fast bowler, how important is it for you to be bowling at full till maybe 2 days out from a test, which includes not just the speeds that you're operating at, but also completing that run up, like your actual run up?
When you sit back and look at it, it's probably the only reason you're having a session like that is just to see how your body is coping and see how you pull up. You don't want to go into a match with not much under your belt, bowling wise, after playing a test match in Brisbane, come into Adelaide. You just want to see how the body's feeling, maybe bowl 1 or 2 overs off the long run just to make sure everything's ticking over. That's more what it is. And I think everyone's so individual on this as well. Some people feel like they have to bowl a few overs off the long run at high intensity to make sure that they're mentally right. I mean, I've done that before. I think I did it at Lords, where I bowled for an hour or so day before a test match, just to get myself right mentally. So, I mean, it just varies, but I think in that situation, there's always something you can do on the nets, no matter what. And I think when you've got limited run-up space, you can always work on a bit of technique stuff, or even just backing off a little bit. I mean, you do lose a little bit of rhythm, I guess, with your run-up because you don't have your run-up marked, but you can work on different things. So I've always enjoyed my net sessions. I think some of the batsmen probably wouldn't say that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But it's all part of it. And sometimes I did throw my toys out of the cot when it wasn't perfectly set up, I guess.
So what did you have a go at Damien Hoff, or it was just more internal?
Well, I did stuff with it. I mean, when I first in 2000 was working there with Nathan Horrocks when we were at the Cricket Academy. Hoffy was there, and he was doing his apprenticeship, I'm assuming, at that time. So there was no hard feelings, but he did an amazing job. The Adelaide Oval, it was always with Les there, Burdett. It was always, one of the most magnificent looking grounds. The grass, it's like carpet, and the pitch, it tended to favour the batsman, but back early on, I think the pitch used to deteriorate, and I remember playing Shield cricket there, and you get reverse swing later in the game, and spinners would come into it, so it was a pretty good sort of 4-day Test match place to play.
And this is also, if not the first, one of the very first few drop-in wickets at the Adelaide Oval for a Test match. So was there some, I don't know, were you curious about it? Were there some unknowns about what the pitch could play like because it was a drop-in?
Yeah, it was disappointing more than anything. I've never been a fan of the drop-ins. You have a look at what the MCG turned into. It hasn't really been a great pitch, overall. It's been a couple of occasions where they've, looked at, I don't know how they grade it, but they've been the lowest grade pitches going around. So it's a bit of a worry. There's a whole lot of science behind it, and I understand that we're moving forward in the game, and there's other games that are played at these venues. So you have to look after everyone. So yeah, there was a bit of concern on how these drop-in pitches play, and it definitely lost a bit of its Adelaide Oval. 5-day, everyone comes into play. You bowl at the start, you can swing the ball, maybe get a couple of quick wickets, and then the batsmen are feeling pretty good. Feels like a nice batting track for a while, and then the reverse swing comes in as there's a bit more deterioration of the pitch, and spinners come in at the back end as well. So that's what I've always thought of a test match pitch is like, and I guess that's in the end it played pretty well in that test match. I can't complain, but it's definitely. That's again another topic of discussion. It's such a big topic of discussion, and anywhere, different countries that you play in, they produce different pitches to favour their conditions or their players. So yeah, definitely something we can talk about in the future. But it played all right in the end, and like I said, I can't complain.
But coming from the Gabba, was the role given to you or the message to you from Michael Clarke and Darren Lehman the same? Just go out there, intimidate.
Yeah, that's why it works so well. I think that's why we stuck with, basically it was plan A throughout the whole series, and it was unbelievable feeling. I've never felt anything like it, where you go through a series and there's always going to be a few changes here and there, but it just felt like if we just stuck to our guns and we all played our role, then we were going to be on top. So that was the feeling, that was the thinking, and nothing changed in that series. It was the same. We just made sure that we understood our roles as bowlers, and we just stuck to it. It's I still remember the chat that we had in Brisbane at Allan Border Field. We sat in a circle with Michael Clarke, the bowlers, and I don't know if Buff was listening on that as well, but I just remember we all had our roles laid out, and we all spoke up if we felt like we wanted to do something different. It was a pretty open discussion, but I know Michael was very adamant on each player's role, and I think it was good because it was quite simple, and we stuck to it. So that was the pleasing part, is that through 5 Test matches, we stuck to the same plan the whole time, and I don't know if that shows on the outside, but that's what it felt like for us, and it. I guess we proved a pretty simple plan always works.
Yeah, it showed in the scoreline, and it showed also in how England just went from bad to worse as a batting unit. As that series wore on, and
I think why I say that as well is because you go into team meetings and you look at batsmen and you look at how you're going to get them out and do this and do that. You've got plan A, plan B. And I think sometimes that gets a bit too confusing. I think sometimes There was a couple of moments where you start to think through that series where we were starting to think, oh, maybe we need to change something here. But then we just went back to, no, let's just keep it simple, keep banging away on a good length. I'll come in, be aggressive. Lino spin the ball, get that extra bit of bounce, especially at places like the Gabba or at that Perth. And even in Sydney where he tends to bowl well. And then, not Nathan Lyon, Peter Siddle just hitting a great straight line and length, nibbling it around a little bit. And Ryan Harris with the new ball, swinging it at decent pace. And, everyone just sort of stuck to our own plan and not worried about what was happening at the other end. We just thought if we can bowl our best balls and do it for longer periods, we're a chance of nicking these guys off, and we've got them on the back foot. So once we got into their tail, a simple plan again was to me to be aggressive, bowl short spells, get up the nose of their batsmen, their bowlers, because we also knew that they could make runs down the lower order. So we tried to stamp that out by being aggressive. And then once they were, on the back foot, then, that was where, Harris, Lyon and Siddle were able to, hit the stumps or, it was just an easy, simple plan.
And speaking of hitting the stumps, all this talk of, like you said, Jason Gillespie saying you weren't hitting the stumps enough at the Gabba, and that first wicket, the previous inning, or previous day, late on day 2, you knocked over Alistair Cook. And in your book, you write about how, and this is what you wrote, I often visualize what I want to do before a game, and that was one of those deliveries I see in my mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't come off very often, and even less often against a batsman like that. So it is a happy moment when it does. So it's quite a ball. I mean, and then you go on to say how the famous one, the one that, the clip that gets played out all the time is Ryan Harris getting rid of Alistair Cook. And a happy birthday to Ryan Harris, even though I don't think this will come out on his birthday. I saw that clip again earlier today. So just that ball to Alistair Cook. And was there some satisfaction? There you go. I hit the stumps. That's the first wicket of the innings.
It's quite funny, the visualization thing. I visualized the ball swinging a lot more than that. I didn't swing as much as I would have liked, but it was the same area, it was the same feeling, and it was the same result as I'd visualized. So no, when that comes off, it's very special, and like I said, it doesn't happen as often as you'd like, but I guess that's one thing I learnt in my career as well, is that I went through a stage where I tried to bowl the perfect ball every ball, and I actually got myself really frustrated. I remember a series against Bangladesh. It was a one-day series, and I was testing it out, this theory about I can bowl the ball where I want. Like, that's just me. I'm like a Glenn McGrath. Like, and I mean, he didn't bowl the ball exactly where he wanted to all the time, but he just had a poker face most of the time. And I'm not comparing myself to him, but it's just from a bowling point of view. I just wanted to get the ball in this certain area, and as soon as I'd miss it by like a millimeter or a half a foot, I was getting like really annoyed with myself. So that's why I looked into the visualization stuff, and then just to realize that you're not going to bowl that perfect ball every ball. It's how you then portray yourself afterwards. It's how your body language is. I think I talk about it, about tricking your mind into going, well, if I've bowled it 4 foot outside off stump, the batsman's not going to know. But if I just, puff my chest out and be confident, I'm in the game here. And it's going to trick my mind into thinking I'm going well. And all of a sudden it clicks. So, I mean, when you can bowl that perfect ball, you definitely enjoy it. I definitely had a bit of a jump after that, and I was pretty pumped about it. And when you get Alistair Cook out, he was a premium. He was like one of the, if not the best, technically test openers going around at the time. He was really difficult to bowl to because he really knew his game. Great defence. He was that traditionalist when it came to Test cricket. Played the pull shot, played the cut shot, flicked it off his pads. So your margin for error was quite small, and I was pretty pumped about that one.
No, you clearly were. It's.
I think I jumped quite high. I think I almost jumped over his head. Maybe not quite that high.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you did a little Michael Jordan there. Yeah, and you should have just jumped a little closer to Alistair Cook to just prove, like, kind of ram the point home even more. Uh, and look, you clean him up. He was captain of the side. This talk of like not hitting the stumps in Brisbane, like I said. So was that also, from a very cricketing side when you got him out? Also kind of told you the length that you should be bowling on or bowling at, because the next day you hit the stumps quite often.
Yeah, it sort of did because it doesn't have that bounce of the Gabba, but I think with Adelaide Oval, and I know back earlier times when it was it could be up and down as well a little bit, especially on day 4 and 5. It definitely stayed a little bit lower, so your length has to be that sort of knee roll length in between knee roll and thigh, the middle of your thigh. So you still got to hit the pitch hard and find that length. And I found it pretty early in that test match. And there was a little bit of reverse swing going on as well because of the abrasiveness of the pitch. And I bowled once the ball stops swinging, I'll tend to look to bowl a cross seam, and you try and get the ball to rough up and then shine one side up and get that reverse. So we got it to go reverse quite early, and then you still got to hit the pitch. You can't just pitch it up full half volley because the batsmen are good enough to hit those. So yeah, that length is definitely helped me with my length in the following day.
And Brad Haddon often says, Mitch, that that's the only time during that series he saw batters really fear for their life. You don't see fear in a batsman or a batter at test level, regardless of who's bowling. But he said that just the way you were bowling, he could sense it, and from behind the stumps. So coming to Adelaide from the Gabba, like, could you sense blood as well in that sense, like, as a fast bowler?
Hads is probably fearful because he had to stand a lot closer at Adelaide Ovals with the lack of bounce. So, but we saw a few like off the edge of the bat fly through, and I think Michael Clark took one that was quite high, almost over his head. So you're standing quite close as slips and keeper. So I don't know if that was a bit of fear on his behalf as well. But yeah, you could definitely sense that there was a bit of nervousness with their batting. Not all of them. Some of them hit it pretty well, but there was definitely guys that were quite nervous and didn't really like it. And I think, especially when I came around the wicket to the left-handers, there was definitely a bit more of intensity about it. I wasn't pitching the ball up. That wasn't the goal when you come around the wicket. It's to use that short leg and maybe one man around the corner and be sort of at the body a bit more. So, yeah, I don't know if it was the fear in the eyes. I know a few guys have talked about it, but all I know is, like I said, you do get a sense of these things, and that's just it's great when things pay off as well. And it's all part of the game. Being a fast bowler, I remember watching Curtly Ambrose is one of my heroes growing up, and I just batsmen were fearful of him. You could see it and you can sense it. And when someone's going at their best and they're fast and they're bouncing, and they're not really concerned about you as a batsman, they're just worried about what they're doing. So I've always enjoyed watching what he did, and I sort of tried to follow in his footsteps in some ways.
What does it do to a fast bowler, like a genuine raw fast bowler like you, when you do sense fear, even if you don't see it very obviously? What does it do to your morale?
Yeah, what happens is your adrenaline goes a lot more and you get really pumped up. So you have to learn to like control that a bit, because it can get too much and then you start to lose it. So I've done that on a few occasions where I've been a little bit too wound up, a bit too fired up. The emotions got in the way of my performance, and it's gone back the other way where the batsman then has got on top of me. So, I mean, that's just the challenge of the game. That's what it's all about. It's you are against an opponent, but you're also against yourself half the time with your own mind and how you're feeling. And at that time, yeah, when it's all going well and you're fired up, and it's just controlling it, and you have to find that way to control it. Otherwise, you lose it.
Yeah, I mean, you controlled it really well, all right. Not just on that day or in that test match, but but throughout that series, and someday we will talk about when you lost control, or like when you couldn't uh, sort of tame that beast that
Yeah.
can come through, right? Like, when you're that wound up and your adrenaline is pumping at that level. So we come to the spell itself, Mitch. On day three, England had batted pretty well, going into lunch after like what it was very different to the Gabba test where you and Brad Haddon kind of helped Australia claw back after those early wickets. Here, you guys had 570 for 9. You'd really put a big total on the board, and like I said, you got rid of Alistair Cook.
Yeah.
But going into lunch, England looked, yes, they lost a few wickets, but Michael Carberry got to 50 at 4 for 116. Yeah, they were in trouble, but you hadn't really got through them the way you had at the Gabba till that point. So what do you remember of that first session? Like, were you in at peak rhythm, and were you just kind of getting into it?
Yeah, they definitely, for us, they definitely got a pretty good partnership going there, and I think Nathan Lyon had bowled a few overs as well. I think the main goal was we thought the ball would reverse swing, so we were trying to let Nathan bowl a fair bit. And just we wanted him to obviously get a wicket, but wanted him to dry it up as well, like put a bit of pressure on him that way and not let him get too far ahead or too far into the game. So, I mean, they played some really good shots, and that's just the nature of the game. And there was I don't think there was any panic from our behalf. It was just more, we were just hoping that we could get that ball to reverse when it was still hard enough. Because you want it to be still hard, the ball. And we thought if we can get the ball in our hands then, that was going to get us back in the game. But, yeah, there wasn't too much panic at that stage through that period. And I think we did a decent job of looking after the ball and keeping the runs down enough, not too much. And but yeah, I mean, that's again, like that's part of the game that you enjoy as well, is you're back and forth and you're trying to figure out ways how to get the batsman uncomfortable or to make him make a mistake. But they were looking pretty good at the time, and but we sort of felt like we were still in the game and still holding the cards.
When you look back at these moments, Mitch, we all know what happened after the lunch break. But then, months and years later, when you look back, was there something that clicked during the lunch break? Maybe your chat you were having with someone, or could even be a really good feed that afternoon, or whatever it is. Like, when you look back, do you think something just clicked before you went onto the field?
I think it was the food, the plum chicken. Very
I knew you would say that.
famous food. Lunch at the Adelaide Oval. So I'll say it was that. That's what clicked. No,
There you go.
I don't know. It's I think we were still all very fresh, and I think like I said, we felt like that they weren't getting ahead of us in the game. They had a good partnership. I think Bell was in, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And he was looking pretty good. He's always been a really, really good player. But there was no panic had set in. I think that's what sort of got us through it. We were still calm, and we still had a plan that we wanted to stick to, and we just felt like if we get through the next couple of batsmen, and then we'll into their tail. So there wasn't much leeway for them. They had to fight harder to get through it. So yeah, once we went back out there, I think it was just the ball had started to go reverse a little bit, and it was one of those things as well. I remember through the whole series is that because I bowled short spells, I could put 100% in. I was going flat chat.
Yeah.
So it's only when I bowled the longer spells that I had to, be a bit more aware of that and sort of just back off at times, pace wise and energy wise. But once I knew I was bowling 3 over spells, all my energy just went straight into that. And when you've got that freedom, it's pretty special. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. This was a 5 over spell, though. You bowled two more than
Yeah, but it was a
what was
5 over
designed.
spell, but Stuart Broad took 4 hours to change the sight screen. So maybe that was part of it as well. I had found that bit of aggression that was controlled as well. So yeah, I guess when it's all going well, you have a bit more energy. And there's circumstances where I was happy to bowl those longer spells, uh, and that was one of the moments.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. Stuart Broad made sure that you bowled to Jimmy Anderson, and we will come to that. Jimmy has to blame Stuart Broad for all that aggression that came his way that
Should too.
afternoon. But yeah, and it started with Ben Stokes. LBW, like this time you didn't make the mistake of not pushing Michael Clark to go for the review. Or when you see the replay, he doesn't look very convinced to start with. I think you and Brad
Oh,
Haddon
you're
kind of
full of it. It was so
coax him.
convinced. It was way convinced. Left armers get stitched up all the time with the angle. Yeah, definitely. I definitely felt that ball reversing, and yeah, when I hit him on the pad, I was like, that's pretty good. So we went up for it, and it was all good because I think there was I think there was overthrows with that as well. I
Yeah.
think it hit him on the pad, and I think then someone threw it at stumps and went for overthrow. So it worked out in the end. I think it was that game.
Yeah, it was. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. It was. So the review did go your way, and that was just the first of 3 wickets to come your way in that over. In walks Matt Pryor, and we'd seen Jonathan Trott leave after the first test, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. And he's spoken a lot about how he felt like, and everything else that went with it. Matt Pryor was another guy, very gritty, gutsy batter. And you just got stuck into him as soon as he walked out in terms of giving him a couple of short balls. So did you feel like you had the wood on him already before you got him out?
I wouldn't say I had the wood on him, but I think just I had, yeah, I was just in a frame of mind that I was, going in for the kill, I guess. And I think the first short ball went through all right, and the second one was a bit sort of stuck. It didn't stick in the wicket, but it was a bit slower off the pitch. But it was still effective enough. And then I think nicked him off third ball or fourth ball.
Yeah, fourth
So
ball.
yeah, he sort of that's a fine example of bowling short balls when you put pressure on a new batsman straight away. I always was happy to bowl a short ball first ball to a batsman coming in because I always felt like it's a hard one. If you get it right, sort of at the armpit, they've got to move. You can't just stand there and take it. There's a big risk in doing that. So I always felt like with a new batsman coming in, use that short ball. And so I went a double short ball, I think. So, and then his feet were sort of nowhere after that. And a little nick, fourth ball, and just sort of put his hands out there. And it just got through to the keeper. It wasn't, I think Hads had to dive forward a little bit to it. So it was already showing signs of slowness in the pitch as well. But yeah, again, another plan. Like there's been a few of those plans throughout that series, that Ashes series, which came off, and you when they come off, it's like it's the best feeling ever.
Yeah, absolutely. But was Matt Pryor also like you had done with Jonathan Trott? Was he one of the batters you guys and you in particular identified as someone you should start off with or start your spell to him with a short ball as soon as he walks out?
No, not like Trotty. Trotty was definitely a massive plan because of that one day series and at Birmingham when I bounced him there. So that was definitely a sign, and that was something we'd wanted to do to him once he came to Australia in that series. Pryor, I guess for Pryor, like he will take it on, he'll take the challenge on. So, I mean, there probably was a little bit of talk about bowling a short one at him early and see if he wants to play it. But I think ultimately for me, I was setting him up for the one to go across. That was more my plan. So be aggressive with the short balls, and then if he got me away, he got me away with a short one. But that again, like you said, like I said, he tended to be quite an aggressive player in general. So when you get a player like that that's aggressive and they get out the way, nick off and just sort of put their hands there, they'd be feeling pretty disappointed. I know as a lower order batsman, whenever I got out something in that sort of way, when you're not really playing a shot, it's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, very much so. And then in walks Stuart Broad. I think it would be an understatement to say that he's not the most popular cricketer in Australia. And I don't know how popular or not popular he was with the Australian team of that era. I mean, also credit to him that his career has gone on for so long. He's played against different generations of Australian cricketers. And like you said, he walks out, and he has an issue with the glare, the side screen, and that seemed to take forever before he finally, took strike. So, your blood's already boiling, the adrenaline is at like fever pitch. How frustrated were you when you finally ran into ball after he was ready?
Yeah, pretty frustrated. There was like a little bolt or something on the edge of the sight screen. I do not know how he spotted it. It was almost around the sort of back end of the sight screen in some ways. So I think the crowd let him know that they were frustrated more than me. They were getting pretty annoyed with it, holding up play for so long, and it was probably good for me just to have a bit of a break and think about what I wanted to do instead of being too wound up again. So it sort of, I guess it worked out perfectly in the end for me. And I guess once that started, that the umpire had said all good to go again. He'd shaped up to mark the middle, I think it was. And I was at the top of my mark thinking, all right, I've just got to go straight at the stumps. It's reversing. I've just got to hit. I sort of probably told myself middle and off stump, aim it for, that middle and off stump, and ended up he jumped so far across and gets bowled leg stump, which was I couldn't believe it, to be honest. So I think he overcompensated a little bit. He probably felt that I was going to go for a short ball for some reason. I don't know. I guess he'd copped a barrage in Brisbane. So he sort of overcompensated a little bit trying to get inside the line of it. But, ended up being good on this occasion and hitting the stumps, being nice and full.
Yeah, I mean, there are many iconic moments or images from that series, but just to see Stuart Broad end up almost outside off stump with his leg pole knocked out, it's quite something. It kind of, in many ways, summed up that series, where the England batters were when they were facing you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always thought, this is the thing that we spoke about before the series had started, was how dangerous a batsman he was. So it was, it was nice to be able to ruffle his feathers in that first test, and then just throughout that series, he was not his usual self. He was with the ball, but not with the bat.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this was a few months before he copped that blow from Varun Aaron, and that, as he said himself, changed his batting career, or the batting aspect of his career forever. So, yeah, this happened before that.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that. That was pretty nasty delivery, and unfortunate for him, but he worked his way back. There's been glimpses of Stuart Broad smacking the ball out. I think he did it in the Brisbane test where he tried to get after Peter Siddle for a couple of deliveries there, but
and then you're on a hat trick, but you have to wait for another over because Stuart Broad was out of the sixth ball. So you go back. You've taken 3 wickets in an over. I'm sure you're full of raw energy. Just what goes through a bowler's head when you're on a hat trick, but you have to wait 6 balls before you get that chance to give it a go?
Well, I would have been down at fine leg, so you've got the crowd down there. It was actually a good distraction. People coming to the fence. I'd have a drink and you'd sign an autograph here and there, and people saying getting real pumped up and. But it was a good distraction as well, because I think sometimes you can over focus on it when you're down at fine leg. If you've had a good over or a bad over, you start to think about it too much. So I think I was pretty clear headed at the time, and I wasn't really sort of focused on it. And then once it was my turn to bowl again, then I switched back on, and I think I may have even spoken to Ryan Harris or one of the boys at mid on, mid off, and sort of asked, what do you reckon? Should I do this or do that? And one of the things was, I remember having a short cover, but I wanted him a lot closer. And I know it's like one of those things where you go, "Oh yeah, sure you did." Like you wanted him there. That's where the catch was going to be, but I ended up being and just dropped short. But um, yeah, I mean, there is a few things that go through your mind, and I've never. I think the only hat trick I've ever had is when I was a junior. I think I got a hat trick when I was a junior, but it was one of those moments as well where I really wish I'd got a hat trick. It would have been really nice. I think a really nice moment, but it is what it is.
That's the only thing you didn't get in that series, a hat trick.
Yeah,
That's pretty much that would have just completely summed everything up.
yeah,
It would have been just the perfect series. It all was even without a hat trick.
yeah,
And then you don't get him out in that over. And Graham Swan and you also go back a long way. You played cricket against him recently as well. So was he? And he was one of those annoying tailenders as well,
yeah.
right? He could hurt you, and he often did lower down the order. So was he someone like you? Again, going back to what I said earlier, like someone you thought you could target with a short ball?
Yeah, I just think with fast bowling, he wasn't going to stand behind it. So he was definitely pretty open about not really wanting to face quick bowlers. So, yeah, I mean, I did pepper him in some of the test matches throughout that series with short stuff. But ultimately, like, I think the shot that he got out on in that test match, the Adelaide test, the ball reversing away from him, it was quite a wide delivery. And he probably, would normally get that one away, whether it's over the slips or over cover.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just because of probably the frame of mind that he was in, what was happening before that. When you're sitting up in the box waiting to bat and you're seeing all this go on ahead of you, it doesn't give you much confidence if your batsman can't get in behind it, or they're getting rattled by it as well. So it doesn't help you when you're a tail ender. And definitely, I think that definitely just had an impact on their whole batting order.
Yeah, clearly, like you said, he does chase a wide one. Michael Clark clasps it just over his head. Pretty special catch.
It was, like I said, he was standing really close as well. So just because of the lack of carry there, and and you've got to get close so you can get the ball into your hands. But yeah, it just flew so fast. I was quite surprised that he caught it, to be honest. It's one of those ones where you're pumped about, and yep. Little stinger of the hands, I reckon he would have stung his hands a little bit, but all worth it in the end.
Yeah, very much so. And that kind of gives you your fifth wicket, and you hold the ball up, as we discussed earlier. You wave at Dylan, but then you also, from the corner of your eye, see Jimmy Anderson walk out to bat, and you barely go a few days on social media without watching some clip involving Mitchell Johnson and Jimmy Anderson. And I'm sure you respect him as a fellow fast bowler and what he's done all these years and continues to do so. But at that moment, I don't think you were the best of friends, were you?
When it came onto the ground, yeah, definitely there was rivalry there. And I was happy for it. He was happy for it. I think I've had plenty of conversations with him off the field and have no dramas. So it was just one of those rivalries that we both had a bit of a dig at each other. It was never just one way. He definitely got his turn as well. I remember in a Perth test, and I think it was that 10-11 series, where Ryan Harris was facing up, and I'd said, it's on the stump mic about, no, you're not chirping now, you're not getting any wickets or something along those lines. So, and then Ryan Harris gets bowled, and Jimmy turns around and gives it the old, oh, geez. I still blame Rhino for that one, but
he stitched you up, didn't he?
But yeah, no, it's definitely been a long history there, and but it's been a good history as well. Like I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was always good coming up against him. Like I said, the skills that he has as a bowler, we all appreciate that. That's for sure. And to be able to still be going now, like it's incredible. So he's come along a long way. When he first started, he was just, he was a pretty quick bowler, and then he just found that little niche of his, swinging the ball, and really has done a great job for England and world cricket. So yeah, there was at that moment when he walked out, though, I was back on target again. You know, you always try and wrap up the tail pretty quickly, and yeah, I enjoyed that wicket. That's for sure. I didn't say
Oh, you certainly did.
too much, or if anything at all. It's actually one of my most embarrassing. It's a funny one because I feel quite embarrassed about the look that I gave, and I don't know why. I would have probably felt better if I'd said something, but I don't know. It was just a weird stare. It was like I was trying to look into his eyes or something. I don't know. Had my arms out, like I don't know. The sound.
There you
What
go.
I liked though about that wicket was as a fast bowler, you want to hear the stumps getting smashed.
Yeah.
So compared to that game, so Cookies won and Broads won. The
Yeah.
sound of Anderson's one was so different. It I don't know if it was because it was the middle stump and it had the stump mic and the camera in it, or maybe because of the camera. I don't know, but it made a different sound, and it was like sort of like music to your ears, I guess.
So there you go. That's something we've learned. Like for a fast bowler, it's not just about the sight of the stump rolling
Yep.
or just about clean bowling someone through the gate. It's also because batters talk about it all the time,
Yep.
right? That the ball hitting the sweet spot of the
Yeah.
bat. So there is that joy you get from hitting the sweet spot of the stump.
Yep. I think there's also the danger of Brad Haddon used to say that I don't know if it was on that delivery or not. With a bail sometimes is in, you know, the bail goes flying past sometimes at the keeper. So there's a bit of danger behind the stumps when that happens. But yeah, no, that was a pretty cool moment to come up against your same number. Well, he was batting at number 11, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean, being a
Yeah.
bowler and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It now that you say it, like it was like it's a strange celebration. You run in like you're going to blow him away, and then suddenly you bend down and you keep looking at him, and even if he wanted to look at you,
He didn't
he has
look.
the helmet on. He couldn't have, like, and he didn't turn around. Yeah, it makes for, I guess, funny viewing. Not in
Yeah.
that moment. Nobody found it funny in that moment.
A lot of people
Everybody
liked it. I was like, people come up. Or maybe I should just let it go and just accept it.
Yeah, just accept it. Just accept it as the one of those moments from that series that people remember rather fondly.
Yeah.
Don't ruin it
I
for them.
remember. I also remember, like afterwards, I'd almost like a bit of a chest pump. I don't know who it was with, but sort of bumped into him, and I don't know. Just you sort of look back and you see those moments, picture them, and just the joy on all the boys' faces. That's pretty special as well. That, like I said, that's one of the biggest reasons why I love the game was playing with those guys, and to be able to, I don't know, when you're at your best, everyone's sort of like pumped for you. And I was the same when guys, you know, did really well. When Ryan Harris bowled really well, got results. You know, you pump for each other. We did it for each other. We did it for the country. We all those people watching. So it was yeah, no, it's definitely a very special moment.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't say anything at all, but you can see in the replay David Warner jumping up and down, and you can pretty much lip read what he does tell Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a quiet send off from all concerned.
Yeah, no, there's you know, it happens.
No, of course. I mean, he did it on your behalf,
Thank
maybe. And once again, you have to wait another 6 balls for your next hat-trick delivery. And this is the one, I think you alluded to it earlier. Ian Bell just pushes it into the cover region. It falls just short.
What was the other one then?
Oh, Graham Swan. It's almost a leg stump, not a half volley. It's like a fullish ball on the pads.
Yes, I remember that now.
He hits it past short leg.
I'd forgotten that I was on that. Yeah, there you go. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I mean, you didn't get a hat trick, so I don't expect you to remember it as fondly as your wicket deliveries. No, so almost a hat trick, and you have this wry smile on your face. Like, maybe at that point, did it even matter that you'd missed out? Yeah, I'm sure you were slightly disappointed that you didn't get the hat trick, but you're on top of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter in the end. It sort of, you have that moment. Like I said, it'd be nice to have a hat trick. but it's not. It doesn't change my life. And I think like things happen for a reason. It was close. I had that thought in my head that I wanted him closer. The short cover. I think I might have dragged him a little bit closer, but then I wanted him really close. But it's like I'm not. Yeah, I don't wake up in the middle of the night going, "Oh, I wish I'd done that." Like, and, worry about it too much. But yeah, no, it was let's say I think just that test match in general, like just to be able to perform in that way when everything sort of clicks. Yeah, it's one of those test matches that you never forget.
Yeah, and there was one more wicket. You had to wait for it for a while because you'd finished your 5 over spell, which is already 2 more than what, like I said earlier, was designed for you. Then you come back, Monty Panesar hangs around, survives, makes the most of not having to face you, and then you come in and clean him up. It's a pretty good ball. I mean, I know it is Monty Panesar that you get out, but it's a pretty good ball that you get that 7th wicket with as well.
Yeah, did he inside? Was it onto his pad, or did he inside edge it into his pad and then onto the stumps? Was that
onto the stumps? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
I had one similar in Melbourne as well. I think I hit him on the pad. I think that was all pad though. Anyway, yeah, no, I mean, sometimes it's easier said than done. Like to aim it at the stumps, I was never as accurate as some guys. So, but when I felt like when the ball was reversing, or it was probably more reversing. I felt like in my element. I felt as dangerous as I could be with the ball, and that's where I felt like I could pitch it up more. I think naturally, I tended to go away from the right-handers or into the left-handers with my wrist position. So my wrist tended to be not quite right behind the ball. It'd be a little bit off center and it'd go towards, go into the lefty away from the righty.
Yeah.
So, when the ball was reversing, I think that just made it go really like a lot. So, like I said, it didn't matter for me if it was a tail end, batsman. It doesn't matter how you get them. Doesn't matter who it is. I always enjoyed my wickets. I think it was just, like I said, a very special test match and in so many ways.
Yeah, and then you walk off, like you mentioned earlier, just kissing your cap or the crest on the cap, and you hold it up. And you spoke up earlier about being emotional. Like, was it by emotional? Do you mean just? Was there a sense of fulfillment after everything that you had gone through leading into not just that test match but that series, and then to do what you did on that day?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a fulfillment is the perfect word for it. I was probably satisfied with what I'd done, and at that time, I knew I had plenty of work to do still, but at that very moment, I felt like that achievement sort of proved to me and to others that I was able to do it, able to back up in test matches and perform well in all conditions. So it definitely brought a tear to my eye. I was very emotional, and I think it was pretty clear. I think some of the broadcasters had said a few things, and it was quite nice. So it was definitely obvious that I was emotional, and but it was like I said, it was personally, it's probably one of the test matches where I look back and go, I was really, really, really happy with my performance as an individual.
Yeah, and you can see that emotion that you just mentioned, like as you walk off, and it's not that you're trying to. Oh, sorry, I just saw the delivery guy and I knew these two would be at it. Oi, off you go. It's actually the Manus Labuschagne coffee that has arrived.
Oh no,
it's not bad.
Oh no,
I know it's not bad.
What are you doing?
No, I'm getting a lot of grief for having promoted his coffee online. Like, trust me, people have unfollowed me on social media.
I would unfollow as well if I was.
I know. Oh, I like Manus. Anyway, we'll talk about Manus some other day. And I mean that emotion you spoke about, it it comes through. Like, every time you see that replay, and there was so many times you walked off the field during that Ashes holding a ball up, your cap up, your hand up, and the whole crowd cheering in Brisbane and Adelaide, Melbourne, Perth, everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the reason you described that as your favorite day as a bowler had a lot to do with that emotion as well.
Yeah. It probably was the only time as well that I didn't feel embarrassed. Sometimes when you're in that moment and you've got to put the ball up, and there's a little bit of embarrassment there as well. That Adelaide one definitely didn't feel like that at all. There was something more to it, and I think it was that fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you went on to play cricket at test level and also all around the world in T20 leagues after that for 5 or 6 more years.
Yeah.
Does it still remain your favorite day as a bowler, or did you have many more that came after that? Where does that rank now when you look back?
It's such a good question because, like I said, this is the first time I've really had to be able to think about it, and I've had very special moments throughout Test matches and other forms of the game. But I think the way I reacted coming off the field, it just proved that was probably the most fulfilling and most special moment in my career. It's pretty crazy. Like I said, you have moments throughout Test matches, Test series, or I've won plenty of trophies with different teams around the world in IPL and for Australia and all different things. So yeah, that particular moment definitely is the number one for me. It's a great question though. Like it does make you really think deep about it, and excuse me, it really does make you think about it a lot and where it rates. So yeah, I mean, if I look at it and I look at the whole Test match, even the second innings, it probably wasn't my best performance in the second innings. I think I got 1 wicket and got a little bit frustrated with Stuart Broad at one point. But overall, I still felt like, that fulfillment in that first innings. I don't really have much more to say on it, to be honest.
No, I think you just pretty much, very organically brought us to the end of this episode. And yeah, I mean, Stuart Broad did say a bunch of things, and you made sure he was reminded of that in Perth. And I'm sure a time will come when we speak about that WACA Test match. But this was beautiful, Mitchell. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for taking us back to what you said was your favorite day as a bowler and maybe as a Test cricketer at the Adelaide Oval.
Hey, mate.